Hey guys, welcome back to Honkai Star Rail. In today's video, I wanted to talk about Silverwolf, some thoughts I have after a day of playing her, take a look at her damage potential, which is actually insane, but that's at E6. But we're going to talk about her realistically at E0 as well, because that's where a ton of people will have her, and why I just really love this character in general. So let's jump over quickly and take a look over here at Pridewind, where they've got damage calculations. Now, this is done by Grim. Make sure you go support Grim. His channel's there. I'll leave it linked in the description. He's a great bloke, does great guides for this game as well, so definitely go check him out. But what I wanted to look at here was this is at E6. Now we're going to jump back into the game and check out her eidolons and why they are so crazy, but just know for a lot of players at E0, she's going to be built as a support. E6, you can build her as a crit rate, crit damage type character. Obviously, she's got break build potential. I'm definitely looking into break builds for mine. I just think quantum break and the way she can deal so much break and guarantee herself to be breaking is fantastic. So I like the supportive break build personally is what I'm thinking, but my free-to-play account is just strapped for gear, so we're struggling a little bit. But even as a supportive character, this is with her event light cone and with effect hit rate on the chest, prioritizing effect hit rates. She still does a decent amount of damage whilst amplifying the damage that your team deals to the specific enemy. So this is more for bosses. AoE fights, she falls off a lot, but in boss fights, like, she's doing this damage whilst amplifying every member on your team's damage, which I think is quite huge. And don't forget the fact that she is debuffing the enemy with speed and attack break, which also help the rest of your team with survival as well. So I wanted to jump back into the game and take a quick look at her eidolons and show you why, as we scale up into E1, not too crazy, E2, damage comes right up, and then all the way into E4, we get some more, and then E6, it just skyrockets. So I want to jump over and take a look at these eidolons, quickly talk about it, but then go back to talking about E0 Silverwolf and my thoughts around her. So let's jump in and take a look. So at these eidolons, E1, this is huge on any character. The idea of getting 35 free energy after you ult, and at base you get 5, so like she's just restarting the turn after her ult with 40 energy, and then you've got energy regeneration. Obviously, you're stacking on top of that, which is crazy. Especially when you also throw in the fact that we've got this light cone, which if they have defense down, she's going to regenerate an additional 8 energy. It's pretty solid, not gonna lie. It's a pretty solid combination. So that's that one. Next up, we have E2. Now, E2 may not look too flashy, but this one is absolutely huge because this removes the need for effect hit rate on Silverwolf. Reason being, I'll go over to this little spreadsheet that I have and show you guys why that is, because this is a crazy, crazy one to me. Once again, it doesn't look too flashy. It's just like, oh, effect resistance down, but it is quite crazy. So these are some calculations I made based off the formula and what her base is. Now, this base is level 7 of her skill to apply the weakness. Yes, her bugs do have a lower base rate, but I'm happy to miss a couple bugs. This is just to guarantee that she lands the weakness on the enemy. So over here, this is if the enemy has 40 effect resistance, which we're looking at for bosses. Now, the base chance is 81.25%. You got 40% resistance on the enemy, which means you need 106 effect hit rate to get to 100% effect probability landing. The big difference comes when we get that E2. Reducing the enemy's effect resistance doesn't just mean like, oh, 20 effect resistance off means I need 20% less effect hit rate. That is not the way it works because of the formula, which once again, it's there. It's essentially your chance to land is your base times 1 plus the effect hit rate times 1 minus the effect resistance. But essentially, that 20 reduction on the effect resistance reduces your required effect hit rate from 106 to 54, which is an absolute huge reduction. And when we look at her traces at level 75, giving her 18% effect hit rate, and the event cone giving her 40% effect hit rate, you're already over the cap you need with those two things. So you have no requirements for effect hit rate in your gear. Whereas if you don't have E2, you're really having to get there. The other thing is that E2 applies to enemies just flat, so it also helps the rest of your team that has effects to land, which is just crazy. The amount of the amount in her eidolons is just honestly nuts at this point. But that is the reason that E2 even though it doesn't look too flashy, you know, like effect resistance down, ooh, but it is huge. As we go into the E4, basically if the enemy has 5 debuffs on them, she's going to deal additional damage equal to 100% of her attack, which then E6 may sound similar, but this is a damage multiplication. So then we just get a damage increase of up to 100%. Now that goes into the formula, it's not a raw 100%, but it's still a lot of damage. And that is where combining these 2 damage increases along with the E2, which means you no longer need to gear her for effect hit rate, and then this one, which means she gets more ultimates, that is how we end up getting to some ridiculous numbers over here in the damage calculations. Now, there's a lot of disclaimers in this. Obviously, you know, she's on the cone, Zilla's on the Herder Shop cone, Zilla's not proccing Resurgence, Jiguan's on a horrible light cone, he's not on his signature one. There's a lot of considerations, but just when we look at her damage alone at 540, this is in an 8-cycle fight, but versus like the 184, it's a big damage increase for her. But like I said, E2 is that main one. I do think still you can look to damage builds at E0, but it's a lot more tricky. I just think, you know, you're not going to get as much out of her, and you really don't want to lapse on that effect hit rate, because the effect hit rate is what allows her to land the defense breaks and the resistance downs, which then allows her to do that damage. So building her as a damage dealer without effect hit rate is a bit of a miss in my opinion, because then you're not actually going to be dealing damage if you don't land those debuffs. However, on the other hand, you can possibly do it where you forego some of the effect hit rate on the gear to then build her for crit, and then maybe have like a 70% chance to land. And then if you're going through Memory Chaos and you're trying to get those, you know, in a certain amount of cycles, then you can keep retrying for that RNG till you get it, so that you can clear it because she brings the extra damage. That is the only case in which I would do it. But in general, I try and build her as reliable as possible. But in general, like I said, the fact that she deals so much damage, but not only that, the other thing, like I mentioned, I'm looking at a break build. I don't have the relics for it. This is my free-to-play account, so my relics are quite pretty poor at the moment. Like, nothing's got optimized subs, I don't even have optimized main stats. You know, everything's pretty average on this account. But the reason I love the idea of using her with a break build is when we look at her ability set, as opposed to other supports like Harmony supports, except for obviously something like Asta, who does a good amount of break. But a lot of them, if you look at Ting Yun, you don't get much break out of her. So the fact that we've got 2 break units on the skill, 3 break units on the ultimate, and 1 break unit on the basic, if you're just rotating through these, you're like getting more, like, especially if you have A1, but let's just ignore that. But like with these 2, you're getting like a similar amount of break potential as something like a Dan Hung, because he's got, once again, 2 break units on the skill and 3 on the ultimate. And the thing with this is you can guarantee the application, so you're guaranteeing that you get that quantum break. You're guaranteeing that she can break enemies no matter what team she's in if you build your team right. And then on top of that, it opens up the accessibility to a quantum break on enemies that aren't weak to quantum originally. And I love Quantum Break in this game at the moment because it not only deals damage, but it also delays. So it's a very versatile break to have in your roster. And I think her as a supportive breaker at E0 is the way I'm really going to look at her, where I prioritize a bunch of break subs. Now, I think I'd still run her on the energy regeneration, which I just don't have one of. This thing was already upgraded, so that's why I slapped it on. But I still think I'm going to look at running her on energy regeneration on this one, as opposed to the break effect, and then just try and prioritize some break effect substats whilst keeping the effect hit rate on the chest, which means I'll pretty much be looking at, for my build, my E0 build on my Silver Wolf will be speed, prioritizing speed, energy regeneration obviously on the rope, effect hit rate on the chest, and then the subs that and then quantum damage on the sphere ideally. If I need some more survivability, I can, honestly, the sphere is versatile. If you're not stressed about damage, you can put some defensive if she's dying too much, like whatever, but I'll put quantum damage ideally. And then I'm going to prioritize for my substats is going to be speed, effect hit rate. I probably don't need too much effect hit rate after that point, but obviously effect hit rate to my cap. And then besides that, I'm going to prioritize break effect. I just think it's a really solid build for her. I could be wrong on that, but that's just the way I'm looking at mine for E0. Once again, I'm still very early days. I'm still trying to build up my traces at the moment because, you know, free-to-play life, you know, it's tight out there. But that's what we're looking at doing. I'm still just upgrading her. That's what I'm farming at the moment, trying to get her traces up. But in general, I think she's a crazy unit. She can provide not only decent damage for a support, she amplifies your whole team's damage on a single enemy, the whole team, not just like buffing a single unit. And on top of that, she offers a great amount of added toughness shred to the enemy, and she unlocks the ability to break with quantum on enemies that can't be broken with quantum before that. And I think those things make her an absolutely insane unit. And like I said, the if you're a Giga Whale and you get it to E6, it's just cracked because she's doing like so much damage whilst also amplifying your whole team's damage as well. And she scales even better with the quantum units because they have the quantum set, and then you're snowballing the defense shred that they get on the quantum set with the defense shred that she has, and it just goes pretty nuts. But anyway, guys, that is the roundup of Silverwolf. She's crazy. I'm really enjoying her so far. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got right now. But, let me know what you guys think if you did pull her and you've been testing her, or let me know if you've, if you're resisting the urge to save for Kafka, which honestly, that's tough to do at the moment. But I wish you guys all the best. As always, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.